Welcome to another Harley Carnes podcast, Harley on the Headlines. I want to thank you for joining in because I really don't want to do it by myself. I like to do the cast, and then you can help me tell other people that it's here. Thank you for liking, subscribing, following before you do it. Okay, here is a gleaming case in which perception leads to reality. First, here's the reality. Wages have been going up faster than the price increases of homes for sale, which means prices, which have risen with inflation, have stopped moving up as fast. And people are making more money overall in the improved economy. That's what the National Realtors Association says. Plus, mortgage rates right now are lower than they were a year ago, about 0.75 of a point lower. Fuel is lower, gasoline, oil, and so on, and some food prices have started coming down, eggs, dairy, and some other things. The Housing Affordability Index improved by 17% in America's western states compared to a year ago, and in the East, the index is better by 9%. Now, you and I know that should translate into better home sales. In fact, people are not buying more homes yet. Sales of existing homes fell in January by nearly 4.5% compared to a year ago. That's a lot. Why is this the case when the reality should create considerable growth in sales? It's because the perception of succeeding is not yet there. People are not confident enough in their future to, squeeze the home buying trigger. Democrats in the Senate are telling federal police how to do their jobs, talking about immigration and customs enforcement. The Democrats have voted to cut off funding for ICE. Cut it off. This means the politicians in Washington are trying to return to much of what the Biden administration was up to by starving Homeland Security of its funding. It's called defunding the police, of course, though they are calling it reform because they know defunding the police is poisonous to politicians who want to do it, might ruin their chances at the polls, but they figure they've got time, A couple of thoughts on the Jeffrey Epstein files. First, most people have had and still have no idea how far and wide the tentacles of Epstein's illegal activities reached. We have had no idea how deeply corrupt and, from what we're hearing, depraved some of what happened really was. There are layers and layers to it, and it'll take quite a long time to try to get it organized enough to tell the story coherently. There are people who are so deeply into it, it will result in books that will shock the hell out of any normal person and will change your perceptions of a lot of so-called great and powerful people. It is astounding, and it is heartbreaking. Now, here's what should happen and what is not happening. President Trump, like so many presidents, promised the most transparent presidency ever. It has been more transparent than any in our memory. But there are a lot of things, of course, that never see the light of day in any administration. And the Epstein story is one. It's emerging like a hermit, slowly poking his nose out of a maze of caves where he's been living for so many years. You can barely make out his face so far, and he's tugging a train of boxes behind him that we can't see well, that we really need to examine in the full light of high noon's daylight. There is no reason for the Trump administration to slow roll this or to monitor the searches being made by members of Congress, which is what caused the kerfuffle on the Hill with Pam Bondi on the hot seat a couple days ago. You can go see the Epstein files yourself. The best thing you can do is to do that. It's not easy, though. It's straightforward, justice.gov/Epstein. When it opens, you tell it you're not a robot and you're at least 18 years of age. Then you're met with a notice that tells you personal information of victims has been redacted, meaning you can't see it, and there is a warning that There's a lot of sensitive content of a sexual nature in there, so good luck. You get a search bar, and if you know how to ask, you can learn a lot of things. You probably would be real uncomfortable telling most of it to your mama. You can download some monster zip files and then read all day long. The real question may be, is your computer up to it? You see, right about here is where people are saying, okay, so what's in there? This is code for, I don't have time to dig through it myself. That's why I'm listening or watching you, hoping you'd tell me all the juicy details. That's just human laziness, folks. It's okay. The media makes its living on that. I can spend, and I will, a few moments on a couple of salient items. But trust me, there are thousands of things to be learned about Epstein and the corruption he both spread and profited from by servicing rich and powerful men around the world. Now, how could he do that? That's one of the questions that I think has puzzled an awful lot of people. How in the world was he able to have so much access? He had access to young women and to an oldish man who does not catch the eye of young women anymore. Epstein offered catnip, and he did it in a place where they all felt safe, his own island, accessible by air or sea, like a sexual dream. In fact, you can bet it was the actual subject of a great many sexual dreams, both sleeping and wide awake. Want to hear something rich? There are university professors who spent time with Epstein. Epstein's reach into the academic world was a lot deeper than anyone imagined. Heads at major universities like Yale have started to roll. I don't mean the head of the university, but heads are rolling, if you know what I'm saying, because it's embarrassing for your name to turn up in Epstein's email, whether you did anything wrong or not. Epstein was interested in science, for example, and medicine. One of his buddies was Bill Gates, who's been sweeping and digging and shoveling for all he's worth in recent days, trying to wipe off some of the grime of that relationship. Epstein's primary tool was money, his ability to hide it and manipulate it and turn financial sewage and graft and criminality into water you could drink at lunch and swim in after. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick popped up in Epstein's files. President Trump so far has not cut him loose. If it turns out to be more than an innocuous howdy-do, Lutnick will probably have to go. This is why the government doesn't make it easy for you to really learn what's in the files. They don't want you to. There are big names, from WWE names, wrestling in the files. It's one of the places where President Trump's name turns up because he was a fan, and he had a lot of supporters from that corner. Some of those emails are just emails, nothing to do with sex trafficking or child abuse or cruelty or anything. The stain is the Epstein name. Now, Epstein was a dick. Sorry, but he was. Here's one such email related to the death of one of the most popular wrestlers, Pedro Morales. Urologist Harry Risch wrote to Epstein, Pedro is dead. Epstein says, I'm devastated. Who is Pedro? Fish says, Pedro Morales. Epstein says, Pedro is dead. Long live Pedro. Fish says, very few people understand the significance of Pedro. Also found out Mr. Fuji died last year. Epstein's response, wah, not before I fall asleep. He didn't give a damn. Didn't even say the courteous thing to a so-called friend who was feeling some loss. And geez, that's got to be one of the tamest examples. Epstein communicated with former White House lawyer Catherine Rumler, Obama administration, and with Larry Summers, Treasury Secretary for Presidents Clinton and Obama. The point is, there seems to be no limits or guardrails. Epstein's tentacles invaded all political parties, many boards of directors of huge corporations, the inner sanctums of foreign nations, and all kinds of academic, media, and entertainment people. You get the feeling no one of power and connection really wants to know the whole story, and that everyone wants to know the whole story. So I'll dig some too, and I'll bring you some of what is going on out there. I also plan to take a look at some of the most shocking allegations being made, and if possible, fact-check them and let you know if they're real or just outrageous fakes. I don't care how those cards land, but land they should right out in the middle of the table. No jokers, no wild cards allowed, really. Thank you for joining me today for today's Harley on the Headlines. And thanks for helping spread the good word that we're doing this together. I hope you will like, follow, subscribe, urge others to do the same too. I am Harley Carnes. We'll talk again soon. And in the meantime, do me and yourself a real good favor and have a really happy day today. And make some good decisions. And fly safe. That is the only way to get there.